Welcome back to Big Sky Buckets. I'm Big Sky, and today we're doing our NBA Finals predictions video. We're going to do a small little discussion about what happened in the previous series. Not as long as we normally do. I think at this point we kind of know, based on how short these series were, what kind of happened. I'll go ahead and say I was unable to get the conference finals predictions videos out because I'm just really slow at this. I'm still getting better. You know, it's a one-man show over here. I would have said Celtics in 5. They got it done in 4, so congrats to them. And I would have said Wolves in 7, and I was totally wrong about that series. I'll break that down within the parameters of the predictions part of this video. But just know, I'm well aware why I'm wrong, why I was wrong, and I will not be making that mistake again. Look, before we get started, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting, and just overall supporting this channel. It'd mean a lot to me. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. So let's start with the losers of the conference finals. Just quick little rant. Pacers here. Look, losing game 1 was the dagger. Losing game 1 and definitely losing game 3, but more so 1. Because 1 was a collective of players faltering in key moments, turning it over when you definitely could have won that game. The coach in Rick Carlisle just not calling timeouts was just really a terrible, terrible decision. I'd like to look over the overtime of that game because I just don't think it mattered at that point. I think momentum was completely on the Celtics side. That's one of those, the way I heard it from my friend Logan was in 95, Shaq's Magic made it all the way to the finals. And in game 1, they just kept missing free throws, and the momentum completely changed, and then they got swept. And that's kind of what game 1 felt like for the Pacers there. It's just when you had all the momentum, you were coming in against an experienced Celtics team, you could have really set the tone going into the series. Celtics haven't lost a game 1 yet, and kind of like come into the next couple of games with a lot of confidence here. And from players to coach, it just never happened. Look, the pace of play is great for a lot of different teams, not against this one, because even though you set the tone in every game, basically led in every single game, in the back of the players' minds, it was like by the fourth quarter, we're going to lose to the Celtics. The Celtics are going to come back. And so for the Pacers here, in my opinion, they have a lot of assets. They have a lot of things going well for them. The one thing they definitely don't want to do is run it back completely as is. I think a couple of changes here and there, to me, whether it's through trades, whether it's free agency, getting some defensive-minded players here just to, you can play with the same level of pace, but I just think you can have an exceptional offense like the Pacers had, but you need to have an average level defense. These playoffs, to me, really showcase the importance of defense. As when we get to the Mavericks, we'll talk about what really changed for them through the 3 rounds, why they have made it to the finals, and part of that is definitely defense. And I think this is something that the Pacers need to look into come the offseason. That's really all I have to say on the Pacers. Like, congratulations to them for making the conference finals. Look, no one would have picked the Pacers over the Celtics. Let's be real. Everyone had the Celtics for the most part. Most people had the Celtics going to the finals from close to the beginning of the year. And the East was not necessarily super competitive. You know, I normally start with like giving congrats to the Celtics, and I know I've been a major critic, but they've done what they were supposed to. I don't really have any criticism so far. I'm skeptical in terms of certain things, but at least in terms of this series for the Celtics, I appreciate the fact that they came back in games instead of just blowing out teams. It showed me at least a different way for them to win because they had not really done that most of the year. Their clutch offense wasn't necessarily great, and in this series, they at least proved to me they can come back in games. So now it's just about, can they win close fourth quarters against a team that's above average defensively and elite offensively as well. But we'll get there in a sec. So let's just jump over the Timberwolves here. Congrats to the Timberwolves again. Making the conference finals for the first time in 20 years is awesome. But really, that's where the praise ends for me. The team I thought going into the conference finals was going to come to play was not the team that arrived. Karl-Anthony Towns was one of the worst players in the series by far because he just wasn't aggressive until the final couple of games. And by that point, when you go down 3-0, you're already dead. You just don't know it yet. Or you do know it, it's just it's like you're being poisoned. There's only so long you have to live. You can extend it to a Game 7 like we saw against the Celtics and Heat last year, but even in that Game 7, regardless of what ended up happening, no one comes back. It requires such a specific set of circumstances to swing your way. To me, it would have been had Luka and Kyrie gone down in Game 5 and not played the rest of the series. The Timberwolves could have won Game 7, but they lost in Game 5. Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns, especially at the beginning of the series, just were not playing the same way. Now, part of that is Kyrie's defense was absolutely exceptional in the series, has been very good throughout the entire playoffs so far. But for Karl-Anthony Towns, this was just when you, I feel tricked, right? Because I came into this postseason Karl-Anthony Towns is kind of a playoff sinker, and there were definitely times, especially in the second series against the Nuggets, where he rose to the occasion, and he just never really did until it was too late in this series. In terms of role players, sometimes not playing well, and then overall defensive schemes in terms of drop coverage in the pick and roll against Luka and Kyrie. You'll work on that. Next time, maybe not... don't help off of your man if you're Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns, etc., because they're just too good in the pick and roll. I think just experience for this team is probably what is needed going forward. My main concern for the Timberwolves here is what is going to happen with the ownership and possibly ownership change. Because if I'm the Timberwolves here, I'm really concerned that whether it's Glenn, the owner still, or A-Rod and company coming in are going to try and duck the luxury tax and mess this team up completely. If that is the case, then my hopes for this team kind of drop off a cliff. But otherwise, you beat the Nuggets, great matchup. This one was just kind of the story of this is a bad matchup, and the Timberwolves need to find a way to get better against smaller teams, because that's kind of what the story of this series is just Jason Kidd, all the credit in the world to him. I have been a major critic of his for a while now, but he really showcased what a smaller team could do to this Timberwolves team. Now, this is kind of a thing that Rudy Gobert has gone through over the years, especially against the Warriors and other smaller teams at a time, but Timberwolves need to be more versatile when it comes to smaller teams, understanding when to have players in the game and when not to have players in the game. But it is what it is. You learn from this experience, and hopefully, whether it's through smaller signings here and there or even trades, the Timberwolves can get slightly better against a team like the Mavericks. But, still congratulations. Definitely a successful year for both the Pacers and the Wolves. Offseason should be very interesting for both of them, more so for the Wolves in my opinion. But so let's jump straight into the NBA Finals predictions here. Let's start with, I think the inevitable is that this is a 6 to 7 game series. I know I've said that a lot throughout the playoffs so far, but this is an unstoppable force versus an immovable object in my opinion. I think despite what the Celtics have had to play so far, or the lack thereof, they are a phenomenal team. Winning 60 games is really hard to do in the NBA, or 60-plus games, to be exact. And in terms of the Mavericks, I did have them getting to the conference finals. I did not have them getting to the finals. Because that was predictions before the playoffs even began. What I have learned about these Mavericks is that they kind of adapt to certain teams. I think their best matchup was easily against the Timberwolves, but in terms of what they learned facing the Clippers, starting off with the Mavericks here, in the first round they played a brutal, just bloody series against the Clippers, even without Kawhi, where what helped them get to this point is that they learned immediately, we're going to have to play ultra physical defense, and that eventually the offense is going to come, and that throughout each series, that defense has remained stout and consistent. From wing defense, perimeter defense, absolutely rim protection from Gafford and Lively has been huge for them. But the main thing is their offense has gotten consistently better. There's been multiple series where they've relied on a different guy for pivotal games that they needed to win. And finally, by the conference finals, Luka, despite the injuries, is just in his form. He's in his bag, hitting game winners, step back threes. He's just shooting much, much better than he has been from the first round to the second round. He's kind of at the point where it's like he's walking into the series easily, in my opinion, as the best player. Kyrie as well, you can say the exact same thing, because through the first two rounds, it's almost like he was conserving energy, and now he's going into this series showcasing that when Luka is having trouble, he can take over. And my biggest issue going into the series is twofold. One, I think the Celtics are not going to be able to stop the backcourt of the Mavericks. The same could be said. I think the Mavericks are going to have a really hard time this time around playing against like veteran all NBA caliber wings. Like through the first round, they played an older team where Paul George was kind of the veteran wing on that team without Kawhi, and that he's just not a number one option. In the second round, you had an inexperienced wing. Well, I know he plays point guard, but like wing in Shea, and then J-Dub. The conference finals, it's Anthony Edwards, the shooting guard, and then Karl Anthony Towns, who's also not a number one option. So going into this one, this is a style of offense, or the hierarchy of an offense, where it relies much more on the veteran all-NBA caliber wing players that have been here before. They haven't won a championship, but they've been here before, and they've showcased so far. They're doing pretty damn well, especially Jaylen Brown. But Tatum, you cannot count him out. I know he's getting a lot of criticism right now, but Tatum has shown us through the playoffs. It's the finals. That's the question that needs to be answered for him. But if he can turn it on at any given point in this series, this is going to be rough for the Mavericks. I know Derrick Jones Jr. has been playing very well defensively. Luka's had moments where he's played great wing defense. But I think this is up to PJ Washington now, because I think this is a Tatum series. This is to get the monkey off of his back. All the criticism, all the pressure. That's the other thing. The Celtics, they got a lot more pressure going into this one. This is expected for the Celtics. This is not expected for the Mavericks, and I think that adds a layer of difficulty for the Celtics here. But the other thing is that Kristaps Porzingis' injury, he needs to be 100%. He needs to be 100%. He's going to be the X factor for the Celtics in this one, along with Drew Holiday. And we'll get to that in 1 second. But if Kristaps Porzingis isn't 100%, this gets really complicated for the Celtics here, because A, you rely on Al Horford a lot more. And, shout out to Al Horford. He's been phenomenal at times throughout the playoffs for the Celtics so far. But the main thing here is the Celtics are the number one worst pick-and-roll defense through the playoffs so far. And that is exactly where the Mavericks shine. Guard-heavy offense where they run pick-and-rolls all the time. That's how they dominated the Wolves. They understood that if we just keep putting Rudy in a pick-and-roll, or, putting him in a pick-and-roll and having them switch everything, we're going to get exactly what we want whenever we want against them. Every alley-oop looked like it was an automatic 2 points against the Wolves here. And I think Al Horford's going to get targeted a lot. The other thing, in terms of Drew Holiday here, the thing that makes him so important is that he's shooting 40% from three so far through the playoffs, which is phenomenal for him, for a guy who's known to kind of falter offensively in the playoffs. But that is probably because he has been a second option at times, a third option at times on other championship caliber teams, when he was with the Bucks, when Chris Middleton was injured, etc. If those numbers aren't fluky, he could easily swing a series if he keeps shooting this well. For the Mavericks here, like I said, the wing and perimeter defense is going to really matter in this one. I know a lot of people are like, look, Kristaps Porzingis can't matter that much because we've already faced Karl Anthony Towns. We've already faced Chet Holmgren. And I think part of that is correct. The other part here is I just don't think having a rim protector who is also great offensively, who is a little bit more aggressive because he's a little bit older. Because Chet is probably the best comparison here, but a rookie, he just wasn't playing ultra aggressive. I think that makes this a little bit harder. The other thing here is just the defense is going to have, there cannot be a moment where Luka is like ball watching. There cannot be a moment where someone on this Mavericks team is taking a play off, because the starting five here for the Celtics is as good as you'll ever see, offensively and defensively. The main concern I have for the Celtics, period, has been the same thing I've been concerned about them all season long. They need to show me that in clutch time moments, because I do believe there's going to be a bunch of games that come down to clutch time, where the games are tied with 5 minutes or less remaining. They need to show me real playmaking acumen and not just hard shots by Jaylen Brown, by Tatum, by the rest of the guys. There needs to be real plays being run. I know for a fact at least one of these games is just going to be a Celtics blowout because they cannot stop making threes. But it's those games. That's why I'm leaning Mavericks here. I think it is a hard decision. This is like my 10th recording here, trying to talk about this, going through it. Sometimes I just talk myself into something while I'm recording here. But I'm pretty... It's not that I'm certain the Mavericks are going to win, but I cannot, in good faith, go with the Celtics because I just believe in the Mavericks a little bit more right now. They've shown me multiple times in multiple different ways how to win a series. And the Celtics, for the most part, haven't really been battle tested. And that's what it comes down to is I've seen the Mavericks get it out of the mud in really brutally physical series. I hate to do it to the Celtics because they have just beaten who's in front of them. But the main thing here is when you're not battle tested, one of these games can just, you could just get punched in the mouth and be shocked at what just happened. I don't think it would swing the series by chance, but I think one game can be pivotal in a series. Momentum is going to be really big. The other smaller issue to me, I don't love the Celtics' home court record. I think they're great on the road, but in every series so far, the Mavericks have at least been able to steal a game in the first two. Celtics got to win at least one of these first two. I understand they've only lost 2 games so far, but I don't think they've played a team as talented as the Mavericks or as healthy as the Mavericks, despite Luka's injury or whatever. He's playing extremely well. And Maxi Kleber is now back from injury. And they're playing inspired basketball. I could easily be wrong here. Maybe the Celtics, I think maybe I'm just overthinking it, and maybe the Celtics have just straight up been the best team. Sometimes that's what it comes down to. It's like, who cares about this whole Eastern Conference playoffs so far? Maybe it is simply that when you get 64 wins, you just are the best team in the league. And sometimes that happens. Last year, that was very apparent with the Nuggets. It was like, well, they're the best team in the West, but are they the best team in the league? And it's just like, yeah, they are. And we figured that out because they only lost 4 times through 4 different series. The Celtics are going in, only losing 2 games through 3 series. But I do think this is just going to be a tougher series than last year. I think this is just a tougher series for the Celtics because they're going in through the quote-unquote cakewalk. And I think now it's one team that's fully prepared for what's going to be probably a bloodbath, and another team that's just hasn't been pushed, has concerns about Kristaps Porzingis, and then you just, I guess, really the way to put it here is you just have concerns about Tatum. Can he get the monkey off his back? Can he play very consistent offensively through the entire series? Because I think if you're relying on Jaylen Brown, all credit in the world to him, to be the number 1 option through this series in particular, I don't think that's the way to win. So I'm going to go Mavericks in 7. I could easily be wrong here. This is definitely a coin flip series in my opinion. I think it's going to be electric. I'm super excited to see one of these 2 guys in either Tatum or Luka get their first finals MVP, get their first ring. I think we got a good one on our hands, guys, and I hope you guys are excited as well. Tomorrow, I think this comes out Wednesday night. Maybe it's Thursday morning, so today, whatever, we get started. The NBA Finals are here. This is what we've been building towards, and I'm super excited. That's about it for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, listening, all of that. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that. And then I will have shorts certain videos for certain games throughout the series come out in the next week or two. And yeah, peace.